Oh, Phil. Oh, we're here again. Well, yeah, sorry. I'm excited about being half baked. That was my excited voice. It's lovely
Very
to see you.
You're
Ah,
excited.
how are you?
Things are good here. You?
Yeah, very, very good. Delighted to be here. I'm fully baking. It's 30 odd degrees today, so I'm a little. If I've got a sheen, it's just sweat, and some sun lotion. I'm a bit sheeny. I'm great. I'm very excited to be on this show. I think it's a show. We call it half baked. That's because one of us presents a half baked idea to the other, and we discuss it. And that's what we're here to do today, Phil. I think is that right? Your idea?
We are, yeah. But before we do that, I just thought it'd be interesting to maybe get a very brief update on your world record attempt. How's that from the last episode? How's
Oh
that going?
yeah. Okay, well, just if you're new to the show, we discussed world records are ridiculous, and to show the kind of the ridiculousness and paucity of creativity, I entered for a Guinness World Record for the longest pump,
Oh, let's
um,
not talk about the details, Alistair.
and which I think is a trump in America. And anyway, so I've submitted it, and they haven't got back to me.
What a
I can't believe
surprise!
it.
I know.
You're not surprised?
What a surprise! I think you got the world record for the the shortest rejection time, or maybe the longest not returning your calls time. Anyway, there you go. But
You know what? I
let's leave
feel
all
like
that.
I feel like I dedicated, and I feel like all my it's just been a waste of time, which is a shame.
Let's leave all that behind us, no pun intended, and let's move on to today's topic. So today's topic, in the UK, there's a lot to talk about getting a new UK Prime Minister, and I thought, right, if I'm going to run for that position, I better get my manifesto together. And what would be my key points? And I've got one that I think would be a crowd pleaser for at least some of the population of the UK, maybe not all of them, and it's all based on the disparity in wealth. And I could keep going back to wealth and wealth and wealth on multiple episodes of Half Baked, but living here in Northern California, it occurs to me there are a lot of quite wealthy people here. And it made me think about, how do people get wealthy? Well, the American dream is you work hard and you move up social mobility through the ranks. And similarly in England, I think most people think, work hard and maybe you might get wealthy. But actually, it's very difficult to become wealthy just getting a normal wage and saving money. I mean, it's really quite difficult to get to a point where you've actually got some money that you can invest in something that then grows and grows and grows. And the trick is to get to that magical number where you can invest something in the stocks and shares, and it grow double over 5 years and quadruple over 10 years and things like that. So you actually get quite a lot of wealth. And I think the magic number for that is something at the moment, and this changes over time, but the magic number there is something like £500,000, I think. Anyway, so how do people get wealthy?
Huh.
Work hard. Maybe they inherit some money if they're lucky. Maybe they win the lottery if they're lucky. Maybe their company that work for goes IPO if they're lucky. Or maybe they invest and then invest in the right stock and they'll get lucky. And did you notice there was a theme there? On most of those things, it was all about luck. It wasn't about
I,
working hard. It was
I did
about
notice that.
luck.
I did notice
And
that.
when I joined the company I work for, I mean, I've been fairly lucky with the company I work for. One of the guys, when I first joined the company, there was something like 100 millionaires. And one of the guys who'd become a millionaire, on paper at least, he said, well, I deserve it. I worked hard. And I thought, no, I worked hard for the last 10 years. I didn't become a millionaire. And yeah, there's a lot of luck involved. There's luck involved in everything. There's luck, I met my wife. It was lucky. All sorts of things to do with luck. Not dying throughout your life, not having a car crash. Look, so made me think a little bit more about, okay, how do we bring a little bit more luck into people's lives so they can get luckier? And going back to the lottery over, at least over here, it's like it can be an enormous amount of money. And it's often made me think, and I'd like to win the lottery. That'd be great, but I don't need 100 million or 200 million or $400 million, which is I don't need that amount of money. It'd be great to get a million or half a million or 2 million. That would be fantastic. And actually, instead of giving one person $200 million, what about giving 200 people $1 million? Wouldn't that be a better idea? Wouldn't that lead to better society, better economy? These people have got money. They start spending money. It drives the economy. So it made me think a little bit more about, and the chances of winning I was looking up yesterday, the chances of winning in the US lottery is something like 1 in 300 million per ticket. And in the UK, it's about 1 in 45 million per ticket in the national lottery. And there are something like $351 million winners in the UK a year. And I was thinking, right, well, is there a way we can do something? Because I think like a half a million is a sweet spot. At that point, you can maybe pay off your mortgage, maybe get yourself a sports car, maybe do a little bit of extravagance, but still possibly have some money left over in the bank to invest. So it's not a stupid amount of money, but it's you become wealthy when you have that. Most people.
So,
So
Bill, so I know that you're going to do a big reveal, which is great. Just want to unpick this £500,000, $500,000 thing, because that's interesting. Does that so I can see where this is heading, and it sounds really interesting, and I'm struggling to find any reasons why not. So that'll be good. But this £500,000 dollar thing, does that mean that when you've got that money in the bank, you can live off the interest? Is it enough
no,
to do that?
it's not enough to do that. It's not enough to do that.
But
So
you can't afford ice creams.
you couldn't just leave work. You'd probably still have to work. Well, many people. It depends on where you live and what
Okay,
your
okay. So it's
lifestyle,
not.
things like that. But it's not quite
Yeah.
enough.
So you can, but you can have an ice cream when you're going to work every day
You
and
do,
not worry about the
yes,
cost of inflation. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Cool. All right.
So
Great.
my
Okay.
idea is, what if you have a government scheme in the UK? It's free of charge. You don't have to pay a thing other than your taxes. It's open and it's open to anybody over a certain age, maybe over 25, and you have to be a British citizen. And there's 1,000 winners a month who get £500,000 each, tax free. It happens every month. It's totally random. It's not means
Okay.
tested anywhere. Everybody's eligible between the ages of 25 and death, and it just pays out. So at 30, effectively 30 people a day get £500,000 from the government, and it's totally random. So that's 12,000 people per year, 120,000 people over a decade suddenly get this payout and become wealthy. Now, what's it going to cost the government to do this? So it would cost the numbers I've just suggested. That would cost about £6 billion a year. Now that sounds to the layman like quite a lot of money.
That
Um,
sounds, I'm not a layman. That sounds like a lot of money.
it is a lot of money, but then think about how much money we spend on other things. That you'd be amazed at what the cost of housing asylum seekers in the UK per year, £5 billion. So just the cost of housing people is costing that amount of money for people who don't even live here. Foreign aid is £13 billion per year, so that's double the amount. So this £6 billion, and by the way, HS2, HS3, whatever this thing is, and that's tens of billions of pounds over budget, right? Tens of billions. So when you look at it in if you look at it in this kind of perspective, it doesn't sound like that much money. I mean, it is a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but think of the benefits it could bring to the economy. These people, suddenly wealthy, they're spending more money. They're doing more things. They're more excited about life. It could change. It could change the way that living in England is like. That's my
Um,
that's the one.
it's
That's my main point of my manifesto. Vote for
it's a
me.
yeah. No. Are you going to run for government? Is this? I mean, that would be great. I'd vote for you.
I think I'd have to have a few more policies in hand. Like I do think about doubling wages, yeah, doubling wages for nurses and teachers, but that's a different subject
Yeah, yeah, it is.
for
It is.
future.
Right. So obviously we can run the numbers and change the numbers, right? When you slice it and dice it, because 6 billion a year is way, way too much. You're never going to feel the impact. You're never going to. So I understand that some of it will be reinvested in like these people spending stuff in the home economy and paying tax on it and all that sort of stuff. But you're never going to recoup your 6 billion. There's always going to be a net cost
It's not
to it.
about. That's right. It's not about recouping the 6 billion. It's about making life great, at least for some people in the UK.
Is it not? Is it not just going to cause? So, few questions. What about the child molesters? Um, I don't mean in general. I mean, you know what's going to happen. The first person who wins it is going to be a child molester, aren't they? That's just how things work. So, what about people in prison? Do they get? Do you know what I mean? Or with some kind of bad criminal record? So, it's the old problem with that. Secondly, um, what if it just stirs up jealousy? What if it kind of? I mean, you're not going to close the divide, are you? You're just going to end up with loads of like
So
people that you don't like becoming really, really rich.
I think the key point here is this already happens. It's just not a government funded scheme. People work for companies, tech companies, for example. These companies go IPO. Doesn't matter who you are or whether you've been molesting children or whether you've got a criminal background. And previously, if you're in the company, you've got shares, it goes IPO, you can become a millionaire. So these things are happening already. People are getting rich one way or another. Does the lottery say you can't be a lottery winner if you're molesting children? Now, I'm not. I'm not a fan of molesting children, right? Or molesters. But let's put. I don't know. How we got onto that subject, but move it. Put it to one side. This is. I don't think it's a valid argument for not doing it.
Okay, I think it's a semi-valid argument. I guess what I'm saying is the sod's law always means that some twat ends up winning the first one, and it just becomes,
That's what happens
um,
with IPOs. That's what happens with lottery tickets. These things already happen. There's not a reason not to do this one.
is it effectively not just another tax?
Mm.
Because if it doesn't cost us anything, but the government has to find a net, I don't know, 3 billion hole every year, it's got to have to fill that. So is it not just a tax by another? Is it effectively you are paying for it?
You've
There's
got
no
to
such
look
thing as
at
a free lottery ticket.
another example: the debt burden. Right, the amount of money the government has borrowed over the years. The interest on the money it's borrowed is $106 billion a year. So that's a huge amount of money. I'm not saying it's like 15 times the number I'm talking about. So it's like equivalent to 3 weeks of the annual national
Well,
interest.
it's just going to make that problem worse, isn't it? It's going to be $109 billion
You've got
a
to
year
balance,
instead of
yeah,
$6 billion
you've
a
got to
year.
balance your books, right? I get it, but and that you maybe hit on a key point here. This is less than 0.5% of government spending. But the government spends money on all sorts of ridiculous things. What about net zero subsidies and support schemes? Uh, billions are spent on this.
Yeah. So the whole
You'd
the whole
rather
idea of
spend
this is
money.
it's an investment
Yeah,
in happiness and
yes,
opportunity,
that's right.
but it's randomly done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of
Um,
sending money abroad to make people happy abroad, why don't we send some money here to make people happy here? Instead of
is
spending all the money you spend to try and keep people out, why don't we also spend some money on the people that we've got?
It feels to me like neoliberalism by another word. And I guess what I mean by that is we go back to the economic decisions in the 80s taken by Reagan and followed by Thatcher. The whole idea there was to get rid of the class structure and democratize housing, for example. So let's give people keys to the council houses and they can own them, being the most obvious example of what went on. And the idea there is like you're just sort of flattening everything. But look where we are now. 40 years later, the world has never been as marginalised in terms of where the money is and where the money isn't. The trickle down effect, which is what neoliberalism was meant to catalyse, the opposite happened. It never happened. It never happened. And this to me just feels like another way of, or rather the result, kind of the unintended consequence is going to be you just end up with pockets of people with loads of money. And then those who are never going to win are just looking at those people and it just makes them feel worse than before. So it's kind of the opposite of the effect that you want, which is joy and happiness.
You've already got this. You've already got loads of people with loads of money, and you've already got loads of people who don't have loads of money. Living here in Silicon Valley, I see a lot of people who've got a lot of money because they work for tech companies that have IPO'd. I'm trying to bring that kind of thing about just Joe Bloggs off the street. He happens to work for a tech company and he becomes a millionaire. Why don't we do that with people who don't work for tech companies, who never have the opportunity to do it, just to recreate that magic for people who don't work for tech companies? Now you might say, well, they should go and work for tech companies. Everybody can't work for a tech company. But people here, it's just random, right? People just happen to work for these companies. They IPO, they work hard, yes, but it's a random event. They suddenly chose the right company and they make a lot of money.
Yeah, it's not a random event, and there is no such thing as luck. But we'll have to get onto that in a different episode, I think. It's not lucky that you met your wife. That was something that was proportionately either going to happen or not happen because you're handsome and funny, which isn't a luck thing necessarily. You end up marrying her, right? So I'm gonna just ask you to remind me of the numbers again in a bit, Phil. In other words, how many people win how much on what sort of frequency? Before that, though, I'm going to counter your idea, which is another one, which is just put sertraline in the water system. Sertraline's an antidepressive, anti-anxiety. Stick it in the water system. It's probably going to be cheaper. Wealth doesn't equal happiness. Sertraline does. So there you go. It's free. It's not a lottery. Everyone's a winner. Even Trump might get out of bed the right side a bit more frequently than he does. Anyway, maybe that's another episode. I just think it's a
Yeah,
counter.
drugging the whole population. It's an
Yeah,
interesting idea. I don't know if I can get on board with that.
yeah.
But
Good. Well, we'll run another episode on that, and you'll realise it's the greatest idea ever invented. So just before we wrap up, then Phil, just run those numbers past me again. So how many people are winning? How much on what frequency?
yeah, so it's £500,000 tax free. It's 1,000 people a month, which means 12,000 a year. It equates to 1 in 4,000. We didn't mention this word. 1 in 4,000 chance of
Right.
winning
That's the
annually.
bit I wanted, I think.
Now, 1 in 4,000 is far superior to the
Yeah,
chance of winning in the lottery or anything like that.
yeah,
It's still equivalent to rolling 3 double 6s in a row. So it doesn't happen very often. One
yeah,
in 4,000, right?
yeah.
I think it's quite a nice idea, and it could change. It could
Well,
change the landscape of the UK.
and
But
you
I've got
could.
an alternative solution as well. The other thing is, if we do decide this half-baked idea belongs in the bin, what about just rejigging the current national lottery? And I think, actually, I was looking at it yesterday that in the UK, there is plans to rejig it slightly. But the idea, instead of offering hundreds of millions to
Yeah,
one person, let's offer 500,000 to hundreds of people, thousands
yeah,
of people instead.
yeah. Who have got blemish-free criminal records? Definitely. Yeah. Look, it's decision time. I think it's brilliant. I think it's I can't see any real downside. I mean, okay, so there's the whole tax deficit thing, and I understand that. And I don't agree with your argument, which is, well, we're already 106 billion every year, so we stick another three on. That's kind of the opposite of what we should be doing. And I do suspect it'll end up as a bit of a tax. Um, but what I totally agree with is the idea of smaller amounts of money for more people. Who, you know, who needs 100 million? You don't need 100 million. If you've got 500,000 or whatever that tipping point is that you can't just, exist on interest on your capital loan, it has to be the right way to go. So I'm on board, Phil. It doesn't deserve to be in the bin. It deserves to be in a patisserie, a French patisserie in the deuxième arrondissement, sold for a lot of money. That's how beautiful this is. It's like a French pastry, fully baked. I love it.
Well, look, that's good, Alistair. I didn't expect this to get fully baked, but as the first point of my manifesto becoming Prime Minister of the UK, I see that as a big
How,
thumbs up.
how do you feel about it now that we've talked about it and you've heard a slight tepid rebuffal? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I do see that more money does needs to be found somewhere, but when you're in government, you have to make these hard decisions about where you're spending your money, and why not throw this one into the mix?
Lovely. All right, we're fully baking it. Politicians take note. Phil, I look forward to the remaining 449 policies in your manifesto, which I'm sure are on their way. That's it. We're fully baking another idea. Thank you so much for getting in touch. If you think it's a good idea, it's one of these, isn't it? If you think it's a good idea, let us know. If someone comes up with the elephant in the room, which is it's a stupid idea and we just haven't, Phil and I haven't discussed it today, let us know, or else we're going to be on the streets campaigning. Thanks for listening. Like, share, comment. Toodle pip.